So the first thing I want to know, Paul, is the current state of the foundation. I mean, you've got a boat and you're on the way up to Iceland soon, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll be heading up to Iceland at the end of May for we've dedicated June through August to stop any whaling activities there.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to explain the situation? Before I found out about it, I thought it was just like Iceland itself had brought back whaling, but it's actually a private enterprise that goes whaling that the Icelandic government allowed to happen. So it's even more tenuous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very complex situation. We showed up in June of last year, and the day we arrived, the minister for the fisheries, she declared a temporary moratorium on whaling until the end of August. So of course we couldn't stick around, so we left. And at the end of August, Lawson went out and killed 23 whales, and we couldn't return because the Danish government had put in a complaint to Jamaica about our interference with the killing of pilot whales in the Faroe Islands, and they had taken our flag. So by the time we got our reflagged, Lawson had gone out and done his whaling. Now the problem is that the Icelandic government is opposed to it, and they don't want this to go in, and the majority of people in Iceland are against it. But Christian Lofson, is the wealthiest and most influential man in Iceland. He controls two political parties, the Independence Party and the Green Party, strangely enough, and he wants a 5 to 10 year permit. And he's actually threatened to take down the government if he doesn't get it. And he actually has the influence to do that. He's demanded the resignation the fisheries minister. Now, there's a lot of people in Iceland say, well, he's not going to be going whaling this summer, but he's adamant that he is going to go whaling, and he seems to be quite used to getting what he wants. So we just have to be prepared to be there, and the objective is to block his vessels at every opportunity. And my objective is to make sure he doesn't kill a single whale. So that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, so in reality, it's just one person, a very rich person. He's hunting whales
Mhm.
for pleasure, isn't he? It's like a private hunt for him, and he's allowed to do it by the Icelandic government who he's got in his pocket.
Yeah, there's no money. He loses about $2 to $3 million a year on it. But his thing is that he likes to kill whales. I mean, people have called him a modern day Captain Ahab, and he actually seems to take pride in the title.
Mm.
He's 80
So,
years old, but it's just an angry old guy who this is what I'm going to do, and nobody's going to tell me I can't do it. Now the problem is for him, and why I don't understand why they can't get cracked down on it is he's hunting endangered fin whales. They're an endangered species. He's hunting them in violation of the International Whaling Commission's global moratorium on commercial whaling. So he's blatantly illegal. Now, when we go in June, I have no concern about the Icelandic Coast Guard coming out, arresting me, seizing my ship. I don't care because I think we need to go to trial on this. And the best way to go to trial is to to break the laws in order to their laws in order to uphold international conservation law. Back in 1986, we sank half of his whaling fleet. We sent two of his four whaling ships to the bottom, and they were never ever repaired. And we shut down their operations for a number of years. Now, I was never charged with that. Nobody was ever charged with that. I actually went to Reykjavik to demand to be charged in January of '88. And the Minister of Justice actually said in the House, who the hell does he think he is? He comes into our country and demands to get arrested. Get him out of here because they knew that a trial would put themselves on trial, and that's the last thing they wanted. So when people say what we did in Iceland in '86 was a crime, I said, well, how could it be a crime if there were no charges?
yeah, so they tied themselves up and not. I mean, so what's with what you're trying to do here? You're trying to block him into the harbour, or when he comes out of the harbour, just make it very, very difficult for him to actually go whaling.
I'll block his any attempt to leave that bay in order to go out and hunt whales. I'm faster than he is. My ship's stronger than his, and that means whatever it takes. I mean, what we did in the Southern Ocean with the Japanese is get in their way, block them, prevent them from refueling. We can't do that here, but what we can do is prevent them from reaching the whales, and we can get between any whales that they want to target with the ship, not just little boats, but with the ship, and block them, block him in that way. And I'm certain any confrontation is not something he wants to see on camera. He actually said he wouldn't kill any whales if there was cameras there, so that might be another deterrent. But I feel it's time to bring this guy down, and no matter what kind of risks we have to do so.
What's his fear of the camera? Is just people have been exposed to the reality of just how disgusting this is.
I don't know. He seems to be proud to do it, but he doesn't want to get it on camera. And the reason being is blatantly cruel. And the Icelandic government, the reason they shut it down was because it takes anywhere from 15 to 40 minutes to kill a whale. And he was ordered he had to come up with a way of doing it um, immediately, but there's no such way to do that. So then now he's coming up with the idea, well, we'll use electrocution after we harpoon them, we'll electrocute them, and it's not going to work. Anyway, I'm not even concerned about the humanity of the kill. I don't care about that. My concern is the killing itself, and also the fact that it's illegal.
I mean, what do they actually do with the corpses of the whales? Are they still trying to pass it off as sort of scientific research, or?
Well, there's two. No, they don't even try to do that in Iceland. The Japanese do that, but there's two things they do. One is I'd say 90% of it is frozen and sent to Japan, sold to the Japanese. The other 10% is sold to tourists in restaurants in Reykjavik and hotels in Reykjavik. You know, a lot of Americans, Europeans going to go and eat whale meat because it's forbidden. So that seems to be the attraction there. So, but it's a Japanese market that he's going for. Sometimes I wonder if he'd just kill whales, even if he doesn't do it. I mean, they've done stupid things like whale beer, for example. His company made whale beer, which is somehow they make beer out of the penis of the whale. I have no idea how you even do that, but that was one of the things that that they were doing.
Yeah, just to give it some kind of weird credibility.
Yeah.
So, as your current campaign, would it be a multi-layered, multi-level campaign? Is it? I mean, obviously, the direct action is probably the most effective, but are there other tiers, to stopping the economic kickbacks and putting pressure on the hotels, etc.?
Well, there are other groups that are putting pressure on them. Captain Paul Watson Foundation, which was formerly Sea Shepherd UK, is certainly doing that, a legal approach on that, and they'll also be assisting us with direct action. At the same time, we're also through the UK, we're launching a campaign against the Faroe Islands this summer, which we hope will be a high-profile campaign, and that's a uh, tactical approach. We're going to be, doing advertising a lot. I'm just finishing up a book on this, like a picture book really of it, but also getting, putting pressure on the cruise lines to not go to the Faroe Islands, and then also direct intervention. I'm trying to get volunteers to get themselves arrested and fill up the jails in the Faroe Islands, and a lot of people are willing to do that.
Yeah, because this is the other aspect of this, isn't it? It's multinational. There's several countries involved in whaling for different reasons and different motivations. So it has to be a multi-tiered, multinational campaign, I imagine.
Yeah, the whaling nations today are number one is Norway, Japan number two, Iceland number three, Denmark number four. So we're putting pressure on Iceland and the Faroes. But there's every indication Japan is going to return to the Southern Ocean. They just completed a $100 million construction of a new factory vessel, which has absolutely no use outside of the Southern Ocean. And they were down there recently doing so-called scientific research, really counting whales, which was a prelude to probably going whaling. So I want to be in a position to intercept the Japanese whaling fleet come. They'll either go in December of this year or December of next year, one of the two. We haven't got that nailed down yet, but we want to be ready in either case. And I think we'll be ready for the end of this year.
So is it four nations then, basically Iceland, Faroes, Norway, and Japan?
That's it.
And is each one got a different motivation and different reasons for whaling?
Well, the primary market is for Japan. They're the only ones who really have a consume it. Norway sells to Japan, but also they take some of the whale meat is actually fed onto fur farms and rendered into dog food and different things like that. But if Japan was not buying, I don't think Norway or Iceland would be. So.
And with the campaign, the current state of the campaign, is it different levels of effect in each country? Is it different people to influence? Obviously, with Iceland, you got the government in the pockets of this guy. In the Faroe Islands, public opinion, governments, they're in different places?
Well, we've been fighting the killing in the Faroe Islands since 1983. And what has changed is when we first went there, 100% of the Faroese people were pro killing pilot whales and dolphins. Now it's under 50%. So we have a lot of people in the Faroe Islands working with us, helping us, and that every time a grin takes place, a drive, we have Faroese people are right there with the cameras. So, that's a big change from before. None of these things are ever solved overnight. I mean, how do you deal with something that's traditionally been going on for 600 years? You can't do it overnight. So, but I think that we've made quite a bit of progress in the last 40 years, considering.
I mean, I guess there's different levels of optimism with each different country. So, would say, let's say, the Faroes be the closest at the moment, currently, that you would be able to stop whaling, or Norway even, or
I think the Faroes is probably the most stubborn of the four, because they're just entrenched with this idea that you have to kill a whale to be a Faroese.
yeah.
But I think the easiest one I think is Iceland right now, and then Japan, then Norway. And if we stop Japan, we stop Norway.
So if you can stop one country, would it have a knock-on effect into other countries?
If you stop Japan, it would, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Japan's the key to this whole story.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you're blocking the you in December this year or next year, you'll be blocking the whalers from Japan. But have you got a similar kind of campaign as you have in the Faroes inside the country as well to stop things? And what's public opinion like there?
Well, we did have a campaign in Japan to stop to oppose the killing of dolphins in Taiji, and that went well. We were focusing a lot of attention on it, and then Japan got very draconian about it. So anybody who goes to Taiji to oppose a hunt is never allowed into Japan again. They're barred. So we basically ran out of volunteers because they couldn't go a second time. In fact, if you show up at the airport and you got, well, I don't know, I'm not with Sea Shepherd now, but if you had a Sea Shepherd T-shirt, they would tell you have to go home, can't enter the country.
And talking to Sea Shepherd, has this made the campaign more difficult because of the current situation that you've had to set up outside Sea Shepherd? And
Yeah, one of the reasons that they ousted me from Sea Shepherd was because of my opposition to whaling, which was being considered, in Iceland in 2019, they told me to not intervene in the Icelandic thing, and the reason being is that they according to them wanted to rebrand, which is what they've effectively done, and in doing so, they've ousted quite a few people, including me. What that rebranding means is that they don't want to do what we've done throughout the years. We were too controversial, we were too confrontational. Now they want to work with governments and corporations. So Sea Shepherd Global now is in partnership with Allianz Insurance, Lloyd's of London, the Dutch Postal Code Lottery, a number of other companies. Plus, they're in alliance with various African nations where we patrol your waters and basically greenwash their fisheries department. The worst one to me is Sea Shepherd Australia doing a partnership with Austral Fisheries, which is a fishing company, which is 50% owned by Marua Daichira, a Japanese fishing company, the very same company that owned that formerly was the Taiyu Fishing Company, which owned the pirate whaler Sierra that I rammed in 1979. So that was a real slap in the face when they did that. The Sea Shepherd policy has always been against fishing, period. I want a 75 to 100-year moratorium on whales, so on industrial fishing so that the ocean can recover. And now they've changed that to now they support so-called sustainable fishing, although there's no such thing. There certainly is no such thing as sustainable tooth fishing, the Chilean bass, sea bass. But the Jeff Hansen, who's the CEO of Sea Shepherd Australia, is now cycling buddies with the president of Austral Fisheries. Austral Fisheries sold them a boat for a discount and gave them 500 tons of fuel plus donations. And I said, why? I was ousted from the board of Sea Shepherd Australia for saying we can't be taking money from fishing companies, And rather than debate it with me, they just ordered me dismissed. The same with Sea Shepherd US and Sea Shepherd Global. I mean, when Sea Shepherd Global, in August of 2022, 4 of the 6 directors of Sea Shepherd Global held a meeting. And by the way, Sea Shepherd Global was never set up to control Sea Shepherd. I set Sea Shepherd up to be a movement of independent national entities, every country being different. And Sea Shepherd Global was established in 2013 for the sole purpose of coordinating ship operations and campaigns. And there were 6 directors, of which myself and Lamia Assam Lamy, the president of Sea Shepherd France, were 2 of those directors. So in August of 2022, they held a meeting without telling us about it. We weren't informed. And at the meeting, without a discussion, they had a vote, and they voted both Lamia and I off the board. And we actually took them to court in the Netherlands. And in December, that was ruled, yes, the dismissal was illegal, but nobody did anything about it. I was informed on September 2nd of 2022 that I was dismissed. I was informed by email, and none of them have spoken a word to me since. And these are all people that I thought I trusted, people who I put into the positions that they're in. But unfortunately, because of whale wars, which was also something that I was responsible for getting off the ground, whale wars made Sea Shepherd very, very popular and brought in a lot of money. You know, we jumped from $2 million a year to $15 million a year. And that put these people into very comfortable jobs. And they like their jobs. And that's why the reason. And I told them I didn't really care about the money. In fact, I was offered $300,000 a year to do nothing. If you don't post anything, you don't give any talks, you don't write anything, we'll give you 300,000 a year. And I said, I don't think so. I said, you know, I didn't set this organization up to bring in money. You know?
So is it like, well, it obviously is, it's a deliberate policy from those companies that most to benefit from whaling and also pillaging the ocean to actually go at Sea Shepherd and basically buy people out?
Yeah, like right now, Sea Shepherd has a free dock in Namibia, for example, and the free dock is provided by the Namibian Department of Fisheries. They've had two of their ships there for a year. Actually, they're getting low on funds because people are pulling away from them. Now, 100 miles from that dock is the second largest seal slaughter in the world. They haven't said a word about it. I sent a crew in there last year with drones to document it, but we had to make sure that Sea Shepherd didn't know we were there because we were concerned they'd turn us into the Namibians. But here they are, 100 miles from the second largest seal slaughter, and they're doing nothing because they want that free berthage that they have. And what they do is they say that they're patrolling African waters to stop illegal fishing. But when Lemmy and I were on the board, we kept demanding, okay, how many ships have you arrested? What happened to them? Were they fined? How long they were detained? They wouldn't give us the answers to that. And then the other thing that happened while we were on the board of directors is we noticed that they had hired an Israeli security firm called Yamasek. And I just got the tax returns on it for the US side. It spent $600,000 to this Israeli security firm. I don't know how much Global's got. And what do? They're on all the ships and they're coordinating the training of military personnel in African countries on board the ships, which is actually not legal what they're doing. And then the other thing they did last year, which was really strange, was that this decision was made while I was on the board, but we weren't informed of it, is they went to Israel to patrol Israel's coastline. And I'm going, why? Well, we're working in partnership with Israel to stop illegal fishing. I said, there is no illegal fishing off the coast of Israel. I said, you're looking at probably the most heavily defended coastline on the planet. And what are you doing there? And it's just a way of getting into Israel so they can get donations in Israel, really. And that's pretty much it. And then they're going around flying the Israeli flag on the small boats, which we've never, ever done anywhere else. And I mean, Peter Hammerstedt, who was one of the directors who ousted me, the joke was he's been back and forth to Israel so much, people are thinking he's a Mossad agent. But what he did do was he hired this Yamasek security firm. They're sort of like the Israeli version of Blackwater.
Mm. I mean, so is it really frustrating, this? I mean, obviously it is frustrating. We have to start again and try and build it all up. Or is the passion and the vision so strong that you're just going to do it anyway?
Okay, they took our ships, they took our assets, they took our archives, they took everything, but the three things they didn't take and can't take is the passion, the courage, and the imagination that made us what we are. They don't have that. But there were three groups of Sea Shepherd groups that didn't go along with this. Sea Shepherd France, which is independent, although it's being sued by Sea Shepherd Global now. They're trying to say that France has no right to use the logos that I designed or the name that I created. I'm also forbidden. I'm forbidden to actually use it. They had my Facebook page shut down a couple of times for wearing a Sea Shepherd shirt of the logo that I designed, saying it's their property. They have the copyright on it. But so that's going to court in France, and some judgment's going to be built on that. They're spending all this money to sue. They spent $1.5 million suing me in the US on that. And it's all just using lawyers as a weapons in order to gain control and to all saying copyright this. What I did on which I didn't realize I did was create a very powerful logo symbol, the Jolly Roger, and a name which has an incredible history of being effective. And they took that over. And these were people who didn't create it; they just seized it. And their response to me is, well, they don't respond to me. I haven't heard anything from them at all. But I'm working with Sea Shepherd France, Sea Shepherd Brazil, and Sea Shepherd UK changed its name to Captain Paul Watson Foundation UK. I didn't really like the idea of using my name in it, but I needed something that I knew they couldn't take away from me at that time. So I'm actually inclined to going forward, as although it'll remain the Captain Paul Watson Foundation, I might just go down to the foundation or something. But because I just don't like that look. Because I'd never wanted to control an organization. It's always has to be a movement. That's where the strength is. That's where you're effective, is with a movement. I never micromanaged any of those national entities. Never told them what to do and everything like that. But these four directors, Alex Cornelissen and Geert Vons from the Netherlands, Jeff Hansen from Australia, and Peter Hammerstedt from Sweden, that's what they've done, is they basically informed all the other branches except France and Brazil, who wouldn't go along with them, that we can shut you down. We have the copyright. You either do what we tell you, or else you won't be able to do anything at all. So that's the leverage they have over them. And they were afraid. France and Brazil were not afraid. And I've always said in the Sea Shepherd movement, the one thing that has no place in this movement is fear. You do not respond out of fear. So
Do you think
going,
do
sorry.
you think you deliberately sort of constructed distractions to try and pin you down? Like obviously to break the movement up, but also get you pinned down in court cases and arguments to try and distract from the core fundamental of what you're actually trying to do in the first place.
Well, they're trying to do that, but we're going forward. We got our first ship. We're working on getting a second ship. We're now registered. The foundation's registered in countries outside of the UK and Brazil and France, because we're working in partnership. We're not going to compete with that, but we're registered in Germany and Australia and in the United States and Italy and Spain, Portugal. And these are, again, it was set up in the same model of these people are in charge of their national entities on that. Ireland's another one. And of course, we don't have to do the UK because we already changed the name of Sea Shepherd to the UK.
Do you think it also maybe gives you an opportunity to realign, being a smaller organization again, almost back to where you started? Is it more effective in a sense? Is it more nimble? Is it like the mammals at the end of the dinosaurs?
Well, it probably is. It gives us a lot more freedom. So, I was getting to the point with Sea Shepherd, even though I was a director in the US, I was being told what I couldn't post, what I couldn't write, what I couldn't say, and I was just getting tired of that. The problem happened is that when I got placed on the Interpol red notice by Japan, that forced me to, I wasn't able to travel, and I think these people took advantage of that. And now I'm no longer on that notice, but I think they took advantage of the thing. And I mean, that's how they got me off of the board in the US, as they said that because I was on the red notice, that they couldn't get director's insurance. And I said, I don't need insurance. They said, well, we need director's insurance, and so you have to. But don't worry, if you step off the board, you'll still be involved. You can still make decisions. Your voice is all important. You're the founder. And of course, it didn't take too long after stepping down off the board that suddenly the board started to do what the board wanted to do. So in the US, they appointed a dolphin trainer who's now one on the board, some politician from Florida, a property developer from Florida. These are who's running Sea Shepherd now. But see, their thing is when I left in August, Alex Cornelissen, one of the four, said to Lamia, he says, we're not going to let Paul take us down into the abyss, meaning, me being too controversial, and that might cause him all kinds of problems. And he said, besides, it won't take long till everybody forgets who Paul Watson was anyway. And and we'll just carry on doing it. So if we just don't say anything, it'll all go away. That's their attitude on the whole thing.
So in a sense, they'd end up like Greenpeace, which is a fundamental part of that as well. It's almost the same situation, where it becomes a nice badge to wear, but doesn't really have any meaning.
Yeah, well, Greenpeace, I left Greenpeace to set up Sea Shepherd, but actually, strangely enough, Greenpeace is actually doing actions now that I approve of, and for the first time in 50 years, when they were shutting down that deep sea mining operation in the Pacific a couple of months ago, I was thoroughly approved of what they were doing there. And now what we have the situation is Greenpeace is doing what Sea Shepherd did, but is not doing anymore, except for
Yeah, so it's probably the way around. Yeah. So, I mean, do you have a vision of the future, what you can do now, or is this very much a day-to-day thing, reacting? You have to be reactive, or can you actually, do you have like a
I
2-year, 5-year plan?
I have a philosophy on the future. I learned it a long time ago. In 1973, when I volunteered to be a medic for the American Indian movement during the occupation in Wounded Knee in South Dakota, we were surrounded by 3,000 federal agents who were shooting into the village every night, 20,000 rounds a night. They wounded 46, they killed 2. And I went to Russell Means, who was the leader of the American Indian movement, and I said, look, we don't have any hope of winning. The odds are against us. And why are we continuing to be here? And what he told me stayed with me forever. He said, well, we're not concerned about winning or losing. We're not concerned about the odds against us. We're here because it's the right place to be and the right thing to do and the right time to do it. He says, don't worry about the future. You have no power over the future, but you have absolute power over the present. So what you do in the present will define what the future will be. So I don't get depressed. I don't get pessimistic. I do what I can within the present. And hopefully that will do things. And also over the years, things that I've done have encouraged other people. Like, for instance, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals was founded by one of my crew members. There's a dozen organizations that have been founded by people who came on here because of one thing. The one thing that we're able to communicate to people who work with us is you have the power to change everything. You have the power to make a difference. And just the application of courage, imagination, can change the world. I know. Do you ever see the movie How to Change the World?
No, I've not seen that. No, but is it pretty well those kind of ideas that are there? It's one step at a time, I'd imagine, isn't it?
How to Change the World is actually Jerry Rothwell did it. It's about the early days of Greenpeace. And there's 3 people in Greenpeace that he focuses on: Bob Hunter, myself, and Patrick Moore, and where it was going. But that was the whole focus, is how a small group of people can actually make that change. I mean, of course, all 3 of us were forced out of Greenpeace, but still, that we set the seeds. But people come along, and they're vultures, really. They come along and they take what you've created and they use it for their own profit. But that doesn't surprise me. What people do never surprises me. And uh, 3 years ago, I actually set up my own church to address this. It's not a church in the traditional sense, which like that's not religious, but I set up. It's called the Church of Biocentrism, because I felt that over the last few thousands of years, that our entire outlook on nature, our entire outlook on life, has been formed by anthropocentric philosophies, where we're the center of everything. It's all created for us. It's all about us. So my church of biocentrism is a science-based way of looking at we're all interdependent. We're all, that strength in the environment is through diversity and interdependence. And it's a very simple philosophy, really. But I think that if we're going to survive as a species, we have to learn to live in harmony with all other species, plant and animal. And if we don't, we're not going to survive. And the one thing I keep pointing out to people, and nobody think it's important, is that since 1950, there's been a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton in the sea. And phytoplankton provides 70% of the oxygen in the air we breathe. And so if phytoplankton disappears from the ocean, we all die. We don't live on this planet with a dead ocean. And that's why I keep saying if the ocean dies, we die. And why is phytoplankton being diminished? Because phytoplankton is like a crop, and the farmers are whales and seals and fish or whatever. And the fertilizer is their feces. So there's been a diminishment of the 3 primary nutrients for phytoplankton survival: magnesium, nitrogen, and iron, and that comes from the feces of animals. I mean, one blue whale defecates 3 tons a day. It floats on the surface and it's absorbed by the phytoplankton. So that's what we've got here, is a world out of balance where all of these species are working interdependently with each other, and we're coming around and messing it up, and because we simply don't understand it. We're ecologically, as a species, extremely ignorant and also very arrogant. They used to call us Homo erogantus ignoramus.
But isn't the irony of all this that the fact it's not about saving the planet, because the planet will find a way of continuing without us. It actually is saving ourselves in it by living in everything else.
I say that all the time. Let's not be arrogant to think we're going to save the planet. It's about saving ourselves, but it's also about saving millions of species that we'll take down with us. But I said at the COP21 conference in Paris in 2015, I said, well, I'm not too overly pessimistic. I said, 250 million years ago, 97% of everything in the ocean and 76% of everything on land was wiped out during the Permian extinction. And look where we are now. So no matter what happens, 250 million years from now, this is going to be a beautiful planet. We're not going to be here, but everything will evolve to, and ecological niches will be filled. And, there probably won't be much evidence that we even here. I mean, there will be bacteria that will develop that will be able to digest plastics and get rid of that. And the only thing it's funny, the only thing that would be here 250 million years probably could be are bronze statues. So sort of like Planet of the Apes.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, Paul. That was a really interesting interview. Yeah.
Well, thank you.